On part one of a two-part episode, we chat with linguist Stu Jay Raj about dirty words and tones in the Thai language.
So, if you've ever stumbled into one of the many pitfalls of the Thai language and said something dirty, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krab and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 to introduce the country to the wonders of clam-based cocktails, but found it a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be.
I can understand that completely.
Don't know what you're missing out on, eh?
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract almost 22 years ago, fell in love with the nuances of the Thai language, such as accidentally saying penis when I meant to say banana. So I never left.
That's a good one.
It's such a beautiful language. It makes living in Thailand and trying to speak Thai interesting.
True that.
Let's just put it that way. We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get our ad-free regular show a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we gave a shout out to Vinny and Sean, patrons of the show who visited recently and gave Greg some much needed fashion swag, not to mention a block of frozen meat.
Delicious.
We also talked about a new long-term visa for expats, as long as they're wealthy, and another depressing story of another nightclub with its doors locked, which resulted in tragedy when another fire broke out. To learn how to become a patron, click the support button at the top of our website.
That's right. And as always, if you have a comment, a show idea, or just want to say hi, head to bangkokpodcast.com and click the little microphone button on the bottom right to leave us a voicemail that will play on the show. All right, so let's jump into things. This episode is part one of a two-part show with our old friend and man about town, linguist Stu Jay Raj. Now, I know Stu to be a pretty cool dude. Ed, I believe the kids these days call it fire. I'm not sure, but you might have to check the Urban Dictionary about that.
I see.
So I knew he'd be the perfect guy to talk about the topic of the next two episodes, and that is the importance of tones to certain Thai words, phrases, and topics. I am, of course, talking about cursing and dirty talk, which I believe any self-respecting fan of the Bangkok Podcast to be fluent in.
Of course.
And even if you're not, it's important to know when you're not cursing or being sexy that you still might manage to say something wrong and piss someone off. So I had a lot of questions that require not only a cultural dissection, but a linguistic one as well, and that's when I called Stu. Now, a warning before the show starts, if you're a foreigner with medium to low level of Thai language ability, some parts of the show will range from incomprehensible to mildly amusing. But if you have a high level of Thai fluency and or are a Thai person, some parts of the show will probably sound pretty distasteful and, dare I say it, even scandalous. So here is part one of a very interesting conversation I had with our buddy Stu Jay Raj. All right, we welcome back to our show an old friend of mine, an old friend of the podcast, and someone that we love talking to and someone that our listeners love hearing from, Mr. Stu Jay Raj. Welcome back to the show, man.
Thank you, Greg. It's always a pleasure.
Well, we were chatting on the internet, as we do, because, you know, we're both parents, so we're very, very busy these days. We're both very important people, so we don't hang out in person as much as we'd like to. And online, we got talking about some of the things that would be fun to talk about. And this is something that Ed and I have talked about on previous shows recently, and that is we got the idea of there are certain things that you can say wrong in Thai. Obviously, every language has this. But we were wondering, what are some of the things that you need to say correctly in Thai? Like, there's a lot of things that you can say wrong, but, you know, you don't need to say dipping sauce or sea urchin, which, you know, we can maybe get into later. Those don't come up often, but there are certain phrases that do come up often that you must get right. And that was the central idea that we're going to run with here, but we're also going to explore a couple of little other tangents as we go. So I've babbled enough. Stu, what do you think about this topic?
I think it's a very apt topic. It comes down to the philosophy that I've always spoken about, I think, on this channel and in all my programs, is you can't apply the rules that we apply to English to Thai. And so, that's what it ends up coming down. So a lot of the sound rules, a lot of the things that we just take for granted in English, we think, well, if somebody can understand somebody speaking dodgy English, well, Thais are going to be able to understand my dodgy Thai.
Yeah.
And the reality is that, no, it just doesn't work that way. For example, like in English, how many different types of English do we have? That we hear, from Singlish to Tinglish to British to all of these different ones.
Well, even in Canada, there's like 4 different types of English that we speak.
Exactly. And across Australia, maybe not so much geographically, but more, different levels in the society will speak different ways.
Sure, yeah.
In Thai, you don't have that variation for standard Thai. And you'll even hear people from up country, I think we spoke about it last time about ne and these kinds of things. When they come and they speak Central Thai, though, they'll be trying to speak Central Thai. And so there is a lot less tolerance for deviation. And that drives a lot of foreigners around the bend because they think, why don't you understand me?
Yeah.
So I've got it coming down to, a lot of people think tones are the main thing. And tones are one thing, but they're only one thing. So for me, it comes down to your tones, it comes down to vowels, and it comes down to your throat. These 3 things. And it comes down to mother tongue patterns. Then all of these things running together will help you deliver really dodgy Thai that people won't understand. And you could get yourself into trouble.
Right. Well, let me start with let me get into 2 examples here. 2 examples that have always frustrated me. The first one is innocent. The second one is not so much. The first one is when I lived on Charoen Krung Road, and I would get a taxi and I would say, "Hello, by Charoen Krung," and he'd go, "Huh?" And I'd go, "Charoen Krung, huh? Charoen Krung, Charoen Krung, Charoen Krung, Charoen Krung," and I would finally hit it, and he would go, "Oh, Charoen Krung." And I was like, yeah, dude, like I don't know how he couldn't hear what I was saying. But like you said, there's no deviation from the norm there. He probably doesn't have any experience with people, Thai people, which he has probably the most contact, saying it any different way than the correct way.
Well, and could you say that word again for me, by the way?
The way I say it is Charoen Krung.
Right. So what you're saying is Charoen Krung, right?
Yep.
This encapsulates everything I was just speaking about. Now, I can hear in your throat there, somewhere you're picturing an E in the spelling, an English E, and it's coming out in your throat. I don't think you're picturing the Thai spelling as a first off.
You're right. I'm not picturing the Thai spell. If I saw it on a sign, I could read it, but I don't know how to spell it off the top of my head.
And I'm sure that the Romanized spelling was the first one that sunk into your muscles.
Yeah.
And there's an E in there. And so you're having that E subconsciously realized in your throat. So you're saying Charoen Krung. And also look at that rhythm. That is an English sound envelope. So
Really?
where are you going? I'm going to Pitt Street. I'm going to da-da-da. I'm going down to the market. Da-da-da-da. This
okay.
sound envelope is also throwing off that entire word. So between you screwing up the vowel
Yeah.
and you screwing the vowels, you're screwing up then also the rhythm and the general, we call it the dangwa of the actual word. Listen to this word, and it's actually the word Charoen.
Charoen.
Okay, you hear that? Charoen. It's from the Khmer word, right? So Charoen. Right. Out of curiosity, just as an interesting point, by the way, you know how Thai Chinese were not allowed to keep their Chinese names. And right, so a lot of the time, if somebody had that, they call them the sa in Teochew or the xing in Mandarin, their surname. So in Chinese, you would normally say, what's your surname? Ni gui xing. Or whatever Chinese dialect you're speaking, and you were known by your clan or your xing.
Okay.
you're not allowed to keep that. So you'd probably know the surname Chen or Tan, Tan in Singapore for Hokkien. That often turns into a surname using the word Charoen in Thai. And then they will put some Atawatanakun, something after it.
Yeah, right.
But you would know by the Charoen bit that they're probably a Chinese family, probably with the surname Chen or Tan.
Okay.
Knowing. So this Charoen, it literally means prosperous, big, from Khmer, Charoen. And if you say Charoen, it sounds nothing like it to the Thai ear. That's the reason why I said I think you're thinking of the spelling is because I know when they spell it in English, it's like an O-E-N at the end.
Yeah, Charoen, yeah.
Yeah, right. So I think you've got that E somewhere subconsciously popping up, but it's coming up first. So you're saying Charoen Krung, and it's Krung. So Charoen Krung. And it feels really weird for a native English speaker to say this common tone through from the start to the beginning. Charoen Krung. Charoen Krung, Charoen Krung. And this common tone, by the way, it's normal voice tone. I don't want to call it. It doesn't just stay flat. Charoen. My voice kind of drops off naturally. Charoen
Right, okay,
Krung.
I see. I can hear it, yeah. Charoen.
Right. Now say the way you said it. Charoen Krung. Charoen Krung. Charoen. Yeah, it sounds like you're saying the word gerund, like Gerund. Gerund.
Okay, yeah,
It's
right.
a totally different sound.
Which is another part of English I don't understand, but that's a different story. So
that's the gan, by the way, in Thai. Go ano, gan ti. That's the gerund.
What about Krung, Charoen Krung?
Okay, so Krung. Again, we get to that. So Krung Thep. So this word Krung. Now, Thais, of course, will not Krung, but they will tell Falang to do it because that's what the teachers tell them to say. But it's Krung.
Okay.
The tongue kind of makes its way to the palate, and then it doesn't fully make it. So Krung. But the correct way, Krung, of course, but no one says it. Krung, Charoen Krung. But again, it's a common tone. Charoen Krung. But you need to stretch that Charoen out. So this is what I'm saying. Like you said, what are the 5 top sentences? I could give you a zillion top sentences that get just mangled every single day because people aren't aware of it and they think it's just the tone. It's not the tone. It's the vowel. It's the it's all in the throat. By the way, your Jotan is not bad in this Charoen. A lot of people would see the CH and say Charoen Krung.
That's what I used to say. Yeah. But then I learned how to read it in Thai and it starts with a Jochan. So it's Charoen.
Correct.
I say Charoen, but it's Charoen.
Charoen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got
so Charoen Krung. And if you say it like that, you'll get it. It all comes down to this aspiration as well. If people see Krung, many will say Krung as well. Mm-hmm. And it's not Krung, it's Krung. It's this unaspirated Gokai.
Krung.
So, yeah, Krung. People, and this comes back to it. People may think that it doesn't matter. Oh, I don't care. I'm saying a short vowel, long vowel. You get what I said. Like, for example, Singaporeans, when they speak English, because of the Hokkien, I think, they will notoriously have 0 long vowels. So the word eat becomes it. The word sheet becomes, so maybe Johnny Depp was putting on a Singaporean accent when he was speaking to Amber and he said, oh, you get the pillow and shit and put on the bed. And who knows? And she took him literally. But so we have a lot of tolerance in English. You cannot make long vowels short or short vowels long in Thai. It will result in not comprehending what you're saying and frustration on both sides.
Pure anarchy. Well, the second example I want to use is one that I started saying because I was just copying what my Thai friends were saying. And then when I said it, all of the Thai people were like, whoa, 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 you can't say that. And that, of course, is alaiwa. Alaiwa. When you see something confusing or someone says, even if you're joking, alaiwa. You know?
Yeah,
but,
I hear a lot of... So this isn't so much you're pronouncing it incorrectly.
Right. No, it's not a pronunciation thing. It's I don't know what it is. It's a cursing thing. It's a culturally appropriate thing. It's a context thing.
Yeah. And so, okay, Thais have a set of friends that are gu mung friends. So you would know in Thailand, they're all different pronouns, right?
Yeah.
So pom for a guy is this standard I, first person. And kun, doesn't mean you. Kun means respected one, because there's no real word for you except for the word mung. Now, gu mung used to be the way that the king would call the subjects.
Okay.
And so it was actually the king's word for calling lower people. But now in Thai, and so that's why they all call it Pasa Po Kun Lam, like Rama IV's language. When they're speaking, it's like a euphemism to say that you're speaking badly or you're speaking in the gutter. Because when you actually call people by those pronouns, even though it's the way the king used to call them, it's low. And so you have, though, when, say, your school friends or your mates that you would hang around, you would use gu and mung for saying I and you.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
And those people are the same people that you would say arai wa.
Right, so it's just...
If you weren't in this gu mung kind of circle, you using arai wa, them's fighting words.
Right. Well, even when I'm with my wife, she doesn't like me to say that, which I kind of understand, because there are certain times where we're out and she says an English swear word, and I'm, mentally inside my head, I'm like, ooh, it's a bit sharp,
And my wife, she's not unknown to drop an F-bomb in English, but when she speaks Thai, I can't remember when she's ever spoken badly.
Right.
And so even if I say alai wa driving a car when some person has jumped out and almost smashed into my car,
yeah,
I'll get a stare.
Interesting.
I like, we normally speak, pretty respectfully to each other. And I wouldn't use the word wa to her either directly or just in earshot.
Interesting. But I found even when I am with my Thai gumung, that even then it's so unexpected to hear a foreigner say that the shock value carries with it almost at a mild level of offense.
Yeah, like, and if you're in those, and it comes down to prosody again, if the rhythm of everything is natural, it probably won't make it feel that bad. But if the prosody is not there, then you hear it. It really, really stands out.
All right.
And the prosody is everything. Again, it's the way you sound, the way that you pronounce your vowels. Just everything needs to be in place.
Yeah.
And so another one that you said there. So when you just said gu, that's a similar thing to, I think we heard Ed say the other day, kun. It's gu. It's got to be this u. Yeah, gu. We can't use these equivalent sounds in English across the Thai. Again, even if your tones are perfect, that's going to be a tell that's going to throw them off actually listening to what you're saying. There's a lot less tolerance in Thai. Yeah. Okay. So there's some. There's obviously the obvious one of sorry. I did a clip on this a few weeks ago, but ขอโทษ This brings it all in together. Yeah. So ขอ. Now, can you hear this sort of spitty sound in the back of my throat too? ขอ. So it's not a core. It's ขอ, right? Originally Thai, this ขอไข่ was a k, and the ขอโหด was this ขอโหด. And so the current kha in Thai, depending where you are, it goes between a k and a really ha. Some young girls, you hear ha, with this really throaty one. But ha, it's quite soft in the back of my throat. And then tod, you can hear it's not ta, it's a t. This is an aspirated. And tod, it's long and it's round. Listen to the difference between a rounded O and an open O.
The open O is almost like a long AW.
Well, I hate using AW. It depends what country you're from.
I guess so.
But if you're as an English speaker, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. For listeners who don't know, ขอโทษ, I probably said it wrong. ขอโทษ is like excuse me or.
Sorry, yes, it means excuse me, but I just call out, you just pronounce the T as a totao, not a totahan.
ขอโทษ should be โทษ.
I can hear your tongue getting too close to your teeth.
Ooh, ขอโทษ.
Your tongue is only on your teeth for a totao, this unaspirated ta. But for a totahan, it needs to be further back where your tongue hits for the N. No. โทษ. No, see, I can hear your tongue still lateral and it's on your teeth. tort. And so Thais will be hearing that closer to a totao, which will sound like the word for fart. So may I fart? So ขอตด
So instead of saying excuse me or I beg your pardon, it's please may I fart? Can I fart?
May I fart? Yeah. And for example, like the word for fart, let's get into that because who doesn't like that?
We both have little kids, and it's all about scatological humor with the kids.
Right. So tot. Look at this o. That's lips rounded.
Tot.
Like in tort. It's the same. It's not right? Tort. But then my tongue is on the teeth, like you were doing for the todahan. So this, and it's a short one though. So tot. But if I wanted to say, just keeps fighting and farting, tot. So you do get that long or, so that then even if you get the da wrong, then you could sound much closer to saying fart than saying I'm sorry. By the word, that word tot, if you speak Indonesian, we have the word dosa from Sanskrit meaning sin or my bad. So saying khor tot, it literally means my bad, or may I suffer the punishment for what I've done wrong.
Oh, really? Okay.
Khor tot, as opposed to khor tot, may I fart. Now, all the Thais listening to this are just probably in hysterics, laughing at these two Falang saying fart all the time. But yeah, well, it's an important one.
Interesting. Well, let's kick it up a notch then. Years ago, I was in a taxi in the back, and a guy said, "Where are you from?" And this is all in Thai. And he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Canada." And he said, "Oh, it's cold in Canada." And I said, "Yeah, it's cold." And I was talking about a trip I had coming up to Canada in Christmas. And he said, "Is there lots of snow there?" And I said, "Yeah, like a lot of snow, up to my waist snow." And he gave me a look that was like, "Man, you are very weird." And much later, I realized what was going on. Can we talk about this a little bit?
All right. So this is where we get, again, it's vowel length. Okay. And I think we're getting into Amber Heard and Johnny Depp territory here with changing the sheets. So short vowels, long vowels mean a lot. The Sanskrit word for snow is hima.
Hima.
Right? Got it. And if you say those, either or both of those with a long vowel, you're screwed.
Yeah, I think that's what I did.
Well, maybe you aren't, but the dog or the horse will be. And so, first of all, if you say it with a long vowel on the ma bit, ma starting high and going higher, ma. By the way, one easy way that we transcribe this, ma, the longest part of my voice. If you were thinking of a music stave, that's the lowest part of my voice. Let's call that 1. The highest part is a 5. So ma, it's about a 4 to a 5. That's what we call the high tone in Thai.
Okay.
That is a horse. Ma. And then ma, 1 to a 4. Ma. From way down low up, that is a dog.
Ma.
So ma.
All right, got it.
Right, so you can see where this is going now. By the way, my kids who are native speakers of Thai, they moved to Australia when they were 7, 8 years old. And I was doing a thing on tones recently, and now they haven't been back to Thailand for 10 years. And so they speak native English now. But I said, do you know what tones are? Haven't got a clue. Ooh. Can you say the word for horse? Ma. Say the word for dog. Ma. Oh my God, they sound the same. But they're hearing them as totally different words. They just instantly know the words for them, but they have no idea of what the tones actually are.
Right.
So we're sitting there as like non-Thais analyzing this. This is a 4 to 5. This is a 1 to 4. But just understand that if you ask native Thai speakers about Thai, they won't have a clue in general about the mechanics of what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, I mean, let me have a little quick aside here. I once was talking to a Thai friend, and I was talking about the difference between glai and glai, near and far. And I said, you realize that those sound very similar, right? And he thought about it, and he's like, yeah, I guess they do. I'm like, you guess they do? Yeah, what do you mean? Like, it's clear. But yeah, Thais don't see that.
Yeah, and so don't get frustrated again when you ask them about what's the tone for this. They generally won't know. If you ask my kids, they're native Thai speakers, don't even realize tones exist. Yeah, so ma, horse, ma, dog.
Got it. Okay.
So the word here, this is where we have to be really careful, and it starts to go down into the klong. So basically, and we get into this kampuan, It's basically like Cockney rhyming slang for ties, but you have to avoid the E vowel and the H sound at all costs.
Right. So
E.
the word for snow is hima.
Hima. If you use the
Hima.
word snow with a long E vowel instead of a hi, and it raised up, but even if it doesn't raise up, ties are still going to snigger. It means vagina.
Right.
And so if you say ma, it's a horse's one. If you say ma, it's a dog's one. Take your pick.
right, exactly. So that's what I was saying. I realized
but
later. So the taxi
You're
driver
up
said
your
there's lots
waist.
of, up to my waist in horse vagina in Canada.
Right.
This taxi driver gave me a look like,
And I'm sure there's a club for that. but yeah, and maybe they think that foreigners are into some crazy stuff.
well, I mean,
But yeah, it was actually it's snowing, and this is it comes back to it. Vowel length and all of these things that you think aren't a thing are really a thing. Another one that gets a lot of people is when they go, and I just did a clip on this recently. If you check on YouTube, sweetness, and so people are saying, why when I tell you for my coffee or my tea, I ordered less sweet, and it comes back sweeter than ever. No matter how many times I tell you it's sweet. And again, this comes down to the tone. So for example, wan is sweet. The word for a little bit, noi,
noi.
right?
Yeah.
Noi. So that's another, again, 4 to 5, the high tone. Noi. I start high and go higher.
Got it.
Noi. Right?
Noi.
One noi. But if you say noi and you keep it down low, noi, it means a little or quite. And I'll show you because this is where Falang, I shouldn't say Falang, this is where a lot of foreigners will mess it up because they learn a little bit as nitnoi. You've probably heard this word, right?
Sure. Nitnoi. Yeah.
Nit means little bit, right? Nit. Actually, it's a very common nickname for males, usually who have small penises as a child. So all the mothers are joking around and they say, "Oh, look, nit." And so their nickname is Nit because of how small their penis is. So nit is like means tiny, and then noi is a softener.
Okay.
Noi doesn't mean less.
Oh,
So what it
really?
means
Okay.
is, listen to the difference of this. If I say it in English, I like it a little sweet. That means I like it very sweet, not less, right? This is what the noi. Okay, and as opposed to noi, I like little sweet, which is less sweet. So if you want less sweet tea, cha yen, wan noi, that means less sweet. But if you say ชอบกิน cha yen หวานหน่อย I like my tea a little sweet, which means actually more
Really?
sweet than usual. Oh, if you like a little sweet, we'll take this. I'll give you another few extra scoops.
How about some coffee with your syrup?
So that's basically how it goes. And so then people get frustrated because they're saying this noi from where they've learnt nit noi, thinking it means a little. And the noi in the phrase nit noi isn't the little part of the phrase. It's the nit, which is the little, and noi is just a softener to it. So I see this as a misunderstanding, and it
Wow.
happens with spiciness. So ชอบกินเผ็ดน้อย I like eating less spicy, as opposed to ชอบกินเผ็ดน้อย I like it a little spicy.
Right. So where would noi be used then in another
Well,
example?
the
Noi,
usual,
like the
basically,
low
when
tone,
you're asking
lower
something polite, politely, my English no good. So you, for example, bit fi, turn the light off, right? Bit fi noi. Could you just turn the light off for me? ช่วย bit fi noi. I say, old chap, you wouldn't mind just turning that light off over there for me? Or, so this
I
choi
see.
and noi as head and tail to whatever you're saying really softens it. So if I said it again, so bit fi, turn the light off, bit fi noi. You wouldn't mind just turning the light off, would you? Choi bit fi noi.
Oh, so it changes it from turn the light off to
It lightens
you wouldn't mind
it,
turning the light off, would you?
And then choi bit fai noi.
Right,
I
right.
say, wouldn't it be wonderful should that light be turned off? We would all be happy. It's sort of less confrontational than bit fai.
I see. Less
Correct.
of a command.
So this is the different. That's the function of noi, which is very different from noi, this 4 to 5 tone, where it means
Interesting.
few.
Okay.
So
okay.
I think many people go through an entire lifetime here in Thailand not realizing that they're actually got the understanding of noi wrong.
I do. I've been here 20 years. This is the first time that's ever been explained to me. I've never even heard a hint of that.
Man, it's obviously you guys talked about this, but even a show like that, even a segment like that, which we're not even done with yet, it's like I don't know how offended Thai people would be by certain words. It's like when it's your native language, like the gradations of how bad a word is. It's
Right.
like if you okay. Since I actually used the word penis in the intro, obviously in English there's probably 20 words for penis, and some of them are cute, but
Right, sure.
but some of them are like horribly offensive, and I would never say them publicly, especially if I'm being recorded as we are now.
It's also contextual too. Like, what's the situation you're in, the tone of voice you use, and it's I've always found it fascinating. When my wife swears in English, it's like 90% right. But
Right,
there's
right.
just,
Right,
there's
right.
certain inflections or situations where it's not quite right. And I imagine the same thing goes for Thai people when they hear us try to swear in Thai. They're like, no, man, that's just, you're not doing it right.
That's right. I was on this topic. I recently was with 2 Thai friends who have excellent English, and I was trying to explain to them the 2-syllable version of damn. Damn. I was trying to explain it, and they were practicing it. I'm like, you got it, and they were asking me like, so when do I use this? And I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of
That's
like
fascinating.
damn. There's some extra meaning added with the
Right.
2-syllable damn. I'm not sure what it is.
Once they become fluent in damn, then you can school them in the use of she.
That's high level.
That is high level.
No, man, I love Stu. It's like his knowledge is so damn deep. It's just wrong. No
Right.
one person should know. It's not, you and I have talked before about, foreigners or Westerners or whatever who speak Thai well. It's like we respect them, but it's just annoying because they have this skill that we wish we had. But then on top of that, Stu just can explain it all. So he's got the knowledge. It's not just his ability.
Right, and that's what I like about Stu as well, is because he's a very good example of why it's not just the book smarts about language, it's also the cultural context and flavor and
Sure.
that goes in there too. And those things are so closely intertwined that you can't understand one without understanding the other. So it was just a real fun conversation. Apologies to any listeners who found it gross or awful. But these are the little words that you hear and use and learn, and the situations I describe, like when I say something wrong and I expect it to be innocent, but it's actually horrible. Like that happens to everyone all the time. So,
Right.
This is, it sounds funny, but it's a real issue. And if you've got to be, aware
doubt.
of who you're talking to and what you're talking
Well,
about.
to our Thai listeners, we're sorry if we were offensive. Actually, it wasn't me. It was Greg. But hey, we can just play the Farang card. Like, we're idiots. So we'll just have to play that card.
Damn.
Shit.
Well, thanks, Stu, for coming on, man. That was cool to talk to you. And hit us back next week. We're going to have part 2 of the same conversation with our buddy Stu, and look for more fun and offensive material.
Cool stuff.
always.
Cool stuff.
All right, so one of the new segments we want to try out in this new season is something that we call Would You Rather, where one of us picks 2 contrasting situations tied to Thailand to debate and choose which one we'd prefer. And this week it's me. So Ed, this was your idea. I like this idea. I play this game with my son. Today he asked me if I would rather have jam in my nose or peanut butter in my ears. So that's
I love it.
stuff
I love it. I love it.
for those interested, I said it would better to have peanut butter in your ears because that's annoying, whereas jam in your nose can be potentially life-threatening. So,
Oh, wow. Okay. You got reasons, man. You got logic.
that's right. That's right, man. It's all about logic. So, anyway, I thought this would be a fun one because it's very simple, but it's also something that I have a lot of experience in. Ed, you not so much, but I know you have an opinion on it. It's very easy. Would you rather drive regularly in Cleveland or Bangkok?
This one, I got a very quick answer. I certainly would drive back home rather than here. And it's just because it's much more crowded here. There's much more traffic. And back home, it's funny because I remember when I first came on the show, like more than 3 years ago, and I feel like we talked about traffic and taxis a lot, but we haven't talked about it much recently.
Right.
That was kind of one of my early obsessions, where you and I were like obsessed with like taxi culture and how to fix taxis. Remember we had like
we did a whole show on that. I was amazed at the amount of thought you've put into how to fix taxis.
Because I don't like to drive in Bangkok because it's so crowded. And I think I mentioned this when I talked about my reverse culture shock and being back in Ohio. One of the good things was cars are actually effective. It's like you get in a car and you can go 10 miles in 10 minutes or something, and it's just like you actually can make progress and it's not painful and frustrating. I really have a problem driving in Bangkok. Obviously, I do it sometimes, but I try to avoid it if possible. And it's just there's we've talked about it before. The problem in Bangkok is there's actually not enough roads for the land area, and it's not just that it's there's traffic jams. It's that it's quite unpredictable. It's so complex that you never really know when you're going to hit a jam. And it could be Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. and you're thinking, I'm just going to fly over there, and then bam, you hit traffic. So for that, this was a quite easy one. I would much rather drive at home than drive here.
Well, the reason I chose it was because on its surface, I think it's quite easy to say like, of course I'd rather drive at home. But, I don't think driving in Bangkok is as bad as people make it out to be. And I drive a lot. But, now, of course, Thailand has the second most dangerous roads in the world in terms of traffic accidents. But most of those are on motorcycles, involve motorcycle accidents. I'm not saying that it's, that's an excuse. So for what it's worth, my answer would probably be Calgary, my hometown as well. But it's not, it's a close call for me because I think drivers in Thailand are much more aware of what's around them and they're much more careful when they drive. They're used to motorcycles and tuk-tuks and guys pushing carts down the side of the road.
Interesting.
Right? Now, they don't stop for crosswalks and,
right.
They go too fast, and drunk driving isn't really punished here as much as it is in the West. So there's problems. I'm not saying it's great, but, there are times when I really like driving in Thailand. I think it's just, you mentioned that sort of level of chaos that there's sort of like, you don't really know what's happening, but I think that can often work in your favor when you're driving in Bangkok sometimes. Like it's sometimes easy to find a parking spot. You pay a guy 20 baht and he'll watch your car for you, when you park. I just don't think the answer is as cut and dry as it might.
I understand. I mean, I've been with you driving, and so we've had this conversation before. You kind of rocked my world a little bit when you were telling me how much you like driving in Bangkok, because it's such a foreign idea to me. You did create some doubt, like maybe I should try it more, but you really just. Obviously, there's difficulties and stresses, but I mean, you got your music, you got, your car is like kind of like your home, and you'd much rather be in an environment you control than be in the back of a taxi.
Yeah, that's right. It's my office, and it's my space. So
so it works for some people.
Yes, yeah. So for me, I think also I'd prefer to, if I had to choose, I think I'd prefer to drive in Calgary, but I think it's a closer call than you might expect.
Gotcha. For me, it's kind of a no-brainer, but I do have a little bit of doubt, and maybe I should give it a whirl a little bit more. I'm totally adapted to taxi culture. Like my struggle is making myself take the MRT and SkyTrain when it actually makes more sense, because I just get kind of lazy. I just constantly just flagging taxis when I really should just be popping on the SkyTrain. So that's kind of my battle right now, is to use the MRT and SkyTrain, because sometimes it is cheaper and faster, and I'm just reflexively grabbing a taxi for no reason.
Right. All right, cool.
Cool. I like it. All right. A final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping support the show. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, baby. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that will feature on the show, or even reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg. So thanks for listening, everyone. Take care of yourself, and we will see you back here next week.
For sure.
Do you remember? I may or may not include this story. Let's see what you think. Do you remember our friend years ago who was really trying to get a handle on the language, and he was practicing with everyone he could? And a lot of Thais will ask you what religion you are, and he was Jewish, so he would say "Ben Sasana," which is religion, Sasana Jew.
Yes,
and of course, Thais don't say Jew; they say you.
That's right.
Jew means penis, so they would say, "What religion are you?" And he would basically say, "I worship penis." I love it.